everybody. Hello. Good evening. Sorry for the lateness, but we had to wait for all of the fireworks and all the dogs. It was just going to disrupt my flow. So, good evening. Happy 4th of July to everybody. Almost, Red, white, and boom. So, let's just jump right into it and talk about it. I've spent probably the past, the past 2-3 days now, definitely the past 24 hours, going through all of my Brian Kapaka stuff because of Steve's statements. And obviously, Vicky Ward comes through and says that, we're going to go over that. Okay. All right. Okay, so Vicky here. Last summer, Michael Kohlberger, Brian's father, declared to a friend that his son, Brian, was innocent. He had not committed the 4 murders and that a trial would clear his name. I guess things changed as we learned yesterday at the 11th hour before a trial, which has been delayed and delayed. Brian is pleading guilty. It's a decision that has shocked everyone, including the victims' families. Again, this is exclusively from Vicky Ward Investigates. She wrote the book with James Patterson. So, a couple weeks ago, Vicky says, someone on Brian Kohlberger's defense team phoned Connie Saba, the mother of Brian's one and only childhood friend, Jeremy Saba, who died tragically of an overdose in 2021. This person asked Connie what she remembered of Brian's behavior and mental health, because he said they were looking for ways for him to avoid the death penalty. Obviously, the lawyers have now found a different way to achieve that objective with a guilty plea. Connie told him that Connie told him what she told me about Kohlberger back when Vicky had talked to Connie, which was he was a strange, silent young man in awe of her popular, athletic son. Both of them had learning disabilities. Both of them turned to drugs. Nearly 2 years ago, she and I spent a day driving around the utterly bleak neighborhood in the Poconos that Brian grew up in. It's a bedroom community where there's nothing for teenagers to do. No movie theater, no restaurants, not even a bowling alley. Connie, who was a teacher, showed me the bike trail and other places where she believed Jeremy and Brian would buy their drugs from dealers. She showed me the house next to hers where Brian grew up. I saw the path he'd come through the trees to spend time with Jeremy, Connie told me. And then when Jeremy would actually go over to the Kohlbergers, guess what? He was never allowed inside the house, which she thought was very odd. She also showed me the garage door through which Brian had broken into her house in August of 2016, the day after Jeremy was arrested for the first time for DUI and drug possession. Brian by then was a user himself, and he had phoned Connie to say he was so sorry to hear about Jeremy's arrest. He asked her, he was trying to get information out of her when are you going to go visit him? Jeremy in jail, because he said he'd like to go visit him too. So Connie had given him the time and then wondered why he didn't show up at the jail. Well, that was until she got home and discovered someone had broken into her house and stolen her iPad. She knew at once who the culprit was. A year or so later, she was standing in her kitchen and turned around, and there was Brian. She hadn't heard him even come in the house. He'd come to apologize. Connie understood why. He was in rehab for heroin addiction. Anointment is a critical step. She never heard from Brian after Jeremy died, but she wondered if he was the person who'd phone her cell and do heavy breathing. He had always been a strange child. His mother, Marianne, had told her he had Asperger's. A year ago, Connie ran into Michael Kohlberger, Brian's father. Here's a little dialogue from them. As Connie Saba is shopping at the Rite Aid in Broadheadsville, she sees someone in the pain relief aisle who looks familiar. She stops. Is it someone she used to work with? And then she realizes it's Michael Kohlberger, Brian's dad. Connie, he says, is that you? How are you, Michael? She replies. He seems very pleased to talk to someone. My heart goes out to Marianne, Connie says. How is she? Michael tells her that his wife doesn't talk to anyone, even on the phone. We lead a very quiet life, he says. We don't go out. And even when they are home, he says, they don't feel safe. People, he tells her, are watching our house. What people? Government people, he says, leaving her slightly confused. Then he says, you know Brian didn't do it, right, Connie? Connie thinks. She says, the Brian I know wouldn't do it. She wants to be supportive. It's then that Michael seems to remember that he hasn't spoken to her since Jeremy died. We were both shocked to hear Jeremy died, he tells her. Marianne wanted to call you, but she felt unable to. He doesn't explain why. Does Brian know Jeremy died? Brian was away, Michael says. He doesn't say where. He didn't tell him for months, but yes, he knows. Brian wasn't the same after the drugs, he added. He wasn't the same person. Connie nods. But she thinks even on drugs, Jeremy had remained sweet and a good-natured boy. But Brian was framed, Michael says. Connie is startled. Framed? Someone planted the knife sheath, he tells her. The police didn't find it when they first went in. There were a lot of drugs in that house, a lot of people around. But they only looked at Brian. You know how he likes to drive around when he's nervous? Connie doesn't, but Michael tells her. He always used to get in the car and drive at night when he needed to think or he had some fog. He had to get away and just think. Or when he couldn't sleep, he would just drive around. Michael adds, things will come out in the trial, everyone will see. Or not. If you want to really understand who Brian Kohlberger was and why he committed these evil acts, you'll need to read our book. It's not so much a whodunit as it's a why, what, and where. Sadly, it's now the only definitive record we'll have that gets near to explaining what happened on the night of November 13th, 2022. This is from the book, James Patterson's book. Again, Vicky Ward is, she wrote it with him. And Vicky Ward interviewed Connie. So that's straight out of the book. And that's where you're seeing all the headlines talking about Brian's dad is talking about that his son was framed and stuff about the sheath. That's where it comes from. So wanted to share that. Now let's talk about, we're just jumping right into it. Brian Kapaka. Brian Kapaka is there was four alternative perpetrators. Okay. 3 of them lived within walking distance. But then you get to the 4th one that Judge Hippler talks about in his order. And he says, he says 3 of the individuals, and then there's the number 2 for the footer. 3 of the individuals were socially connected to one or more of the victims, interacted with one or more of the victims at social events in the hours prior to the homicide, lived within walking distance of the crime scene, and were familiar with the layout of the victim's home from prior social events. Now, then he separates it and he says the 4th individual did not know the victims, but had a passing connection to one of them while noticing her shopping at a store approximately 5 weeks prior to the homicides. Guess what's approximately 5 weeks before the homicides? Ready for this? Brian Kapaka's birthday. Brian Kapaka's birthday is like roughly about 5 weeks before the homicides. October 6th. Number one. Next. The event was captured, so he was following her allegedly, then he turned away before ever speaking to her. Now, the event was captured on a surveillance camera. Ready? Next. This individual subsequently cooperated with law enforcement, providing his phone number, not a phone, but his phone number, and a DNA sample. As with the other alleged alternative perpetrators, lab reports excluded his DNA from the samples taken from the crime scene and victims, and there is no evidence connecting him to the crime scene. Now, it wouldn't be until Steve Gonsalves says and brings up that Brian was going to blame this on a fallen vet. And I said, holy shit. I said, oh my God, that's it. That's who the fourth individual is, 100. Now, this is where the kicker comes in. And the kicker comes in with, that means that Brent Kopacka, his name was said by somebody prior to him being swatted and killed on December 15th at 3:00 in the morning, allegedly. It means he talked with police. It means the police were like, can we have your DNA? And can we have your phone number? Okay. You're right. It's not actually what he really said. It's what he wrote. He wrote it. He didn't say it. He actually wrote what I just said. He wrote it. And so everything that we got redacted, I believe that Steve didn't get redacted. And if you look at the order, you'll see that all the redactions, I was able to go through and see that each person in the footers that Hitler does, they're connected to each of the individuals. And it goes in order, and it's like the first big black blob is, individual 1, and then individual 2 is right underneath that, and then 3, and then the fourth one is on page 4. And so that got me thinking to then remember when Anne said at a couple hearings ago, she's like, I was really interested in the fact that I was looking at these tips and I came across a very interesting tip. She was very interested to let everybody know about this tip in the courtroom. But it would be the DoorDash information that just came out 4 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, something like that. And then the alternate perpetrator stuff kind of came out one after the other. And then I went back to all the interviews that law enforcement did over there at WSU of the night of the SWAT. And the neighbor talking about her interactions with Brent, okay, and talking about a meth dealer in Moscow, okay. And then there was different type of cameras, body cameras that came out about June of 2022. Brent was in some hotel and having an episode. And I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, damn. I was like, Molly, that's her drug of choice, supposed to be. And now if Brent went down the path that was his drug of choice, and then if we have Molly as the DoorDash driver, okay, if police were asking Molly things like, who were you with that night? Did anybody go door dashing with you? But how did the police ever get the name Brent Kopaka to ever be an alternate perpetrator that the police would have already had his DNA and talk to him and then know about some random incident where he was supposedly about to like try to talk to one of the victims, but then just didn't and turned away? Like, unless Brent Kopaka was with somebody that knew about that ordeal and like called that in as like a tip or something. So the moral of the story is who called in Brent's tip? Who would have given up Brent's name? And then what are the odds that somebody that would have been a person of interest, you can say it, or I mean, some of the cops would have gotten their DNA and their phone number, then get swatted. You can get his DNA from a dead body. Well, guess what you can't get from a dead body? You can't talk to the motherfucker. Okay? You can't talk to the motherfucker. All right? So here it is. He turned away before ever speaking to her. The event was captured on surveillance camera. This individual subsequently cooperated with law enforcement. So, I mean, I guess he subsequently cooperated with law enforcement, providing his phone number and a DNA sample. As with the other alleged alternate perpetrators, lab reports excluded his DNA. I mean, this is a person that talked to the police. He talked to the police. Alternate perpetrator, the fourth individual, who I believe, based off of Steve's statements, I'm connecting the dots here, that is Brent Kopaka. And he has no connection. The fourth individual did not know the victims. So do you think that Brent Kopaka was like, oh my God, I think I'm going to go talk to the police and say, hey, I ran into one of those girls that was killed at the store, but I was going to go talk to her, but I just didn't. Have a good day. I just want to, let you guys know that. Oh, what? Like, no. This is somebody. And then when I think Anne's talking about coming across a tip, I think when she said, I was surprised to see a tip that was in there. One of the tips. And so I'm thinking, well, yeah, Anne's probably surprised to see a tip that was in there, because now I think she's associating the Brent Kopaka thing to, there was multiple, like not just one person had said it, but there was two. And at the end of the day, what's the most logical scenario? Well, no one's stuff happens bad in an area, or whether it's drug related, whether it's homicides, local cops will know who their local like homeless people are, or their transients, or their they're in and out jail for the drug shit, CI, small CI type stuff. They'll go and hit people up like that and ask them, hey, so who's been acting weird around here? Who haven't you seen in a while? Or who have you seen since the murders that have been acting like, blah, blah. Maybe even ask about knives. Who knows? Or we can look at the most obvious, which would be ding, 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 Molly. Molly. So, bottom line is that all I want to know is how Brent Kopaka's name got involved in this, to the point that he would have ever been dealing with law enforcement prior to his death, and that he would have given up his DNA. It's a pretty big deal. It's a pretty big deal. Who implicated him? Yeah, there you go. Someone in the know. Yeah, someone that knows him. Or ready for this one. Well, let's talk about DoorDash here for a second. DoorDash. Well, from what I understand, people give away their DoorDashes. I mean, in terms of like, I'm going to use your app tonight to go door dashing, and then you're going to give me the money. Thank you there. 5 gifted Truth and Transparency memberships. Jackie, thank you. Lana, he did meth and would wander all night in Moscow. Sent you an interview with his friends months ago. Yes, I've already had those. I put those out a while ago. Like, I don't even know when I got all that stuff, like a year ago. She Beasts, yep. Thank you for the gifted 5 memberships. But yep, Jackie Gree, Linda. So bottom line is Ann Taylor was looking for something, and I think what she was looking for is, if you're asking for a bunch of things in discovery, that somebody would be like, what the hell does this have anything to do with anything, right? Because you're asking for body cams or dash cams or reports from certain incidences that have been written up or that are involving certain people, because you're trying to find the connection. Okay, you're trying to find the connection to, can you connect Molly and Brent? Who can you connect Brent to? How does Brent even get on the radar of the police? Because Ann Taylor's not even involved yet, because Brian's not even arrested yet. And from the documents, it's saying that this alternate perpetrator, who did not know the girls and was not in walking distance of where they lived, that this person, though, had a passing connection to one of them, which tells me that it couldn't have been Brent that thought he would call in the tip line himself and say, hey, I saw one of those girls and I just want to call in and let you guys know that I passed them about 5 weeks ago. And I think that's her. And I think I saw her and I was going to go talk to her, but I didn't. Okay, have a good day. You know, that's not how that went down. So how would it ever come out? And this is when they talk about this as hearsay on top of hearsay. And the hearsay on top of hearsay, well, it doesn't become hearsay if the tip at first is hearsay, but then you talk to Brent and then an officer would have asked him, well, have you ever seen any of these girls? Have you ever hung out with them? No. What about at such and such place? Did you ever run into some? Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know if that was really them. And then they go and look at the surveillance camera that somebody, because the way the tip was given over is that it was like Brent was with somebody. And it was almost like a setup in a way. But somebody would call in and be like, oh yeah, my friend was gonna go talk to that one of those chicks. And then he didn't. And he was always like talking about him though after that. It just doesn't make any sense. So it's relevant to find out how Brent Kopaka's name would have ever come out in this situation for the cops to ever have gone and, talk to him if he has nothing to do with these. He doesn't know any of these victims. Let's see what else. And there's a chance out there, ready? There is a chance that person, that anonymous person, what if that anonymous person was Brian? Yeah, we don't know if that's a fake account that the Emma Bailey account wrote on Brent Kay's online obituary book saying, I will miss delivering food to you, RIP. But you have to look at the date of when that happened. It looks like it's a fake account. So what if the person that gave the tip, if it wasn't Molly, who that's where I'm strongly leaning towards, because it's, I mean, think about it. Who do you think the meth people are rolling with? It's like, who did the jocks roll with? Like, you know, it would make sense. Molly lived in Pullman. Brent, he lived in Pullman. Okay. But Molly also lived in Moscow. Okay. And if Brent was walking around Moscow, yeah. But like anything in life, I don't believe that there's ever an anonymous tip. If you did it digitally, if you made a submission, wouldn't they have like your IP address? So was there any way that little Ann Taylor, when she was doing her digging, she came across the fact that, oh, the cops didn't maybe dig enough, but I figured out that, wow, Brian, you were the person that gave that tip in. Who knows? All I know is that Brent was swatted by lies. And then he becomes one of the alternate perpetrators that Ann Taylor gives. But we find out that it was because he was somebody that was offered up in a tip, or offered up some way, somehow, whatever word you want to use. Also, maybe Brian just has a complexion that he wants to go down as a serial killer, not somebody who was planning on setting up vets and having them do his dirty work as like a fake copycat serial killer, but really had tweaker meth people getting involved in shit because, I don't know, they were going to just go in there and supposedly just steal drugs because they knew there were drugs in there. Shit like that. Wasn't Brian's dad involved with like military stuff? Man pleaded guilty, guys. That's where we're going to leave things off tonight. Go find as much stuff as you can. I'm going to go back to and playing all my Brent Kapaka stuff, as well as rumor has it on the hit and run body cams that Brent Kapaka was in one of those body cams from right outside the Septo apartments, the Pimlico apartments over there. That was the night of the murders on 11/12 going into 11/13. What if you needed to take care of Brent so that Molly, because they were together, so that Molly could say she saw Brian? But that couldn't happen if Brent was around, because Brent knows that Molly didn't see Brian. This is absolute craziness that Ann Taylor named Brent Kapaka as one of the alternate perpetrators. And that Brent Kapaka would have talked to the police and supplied DNA and his phone number prior to dying and being swatted. And that happened right after Brian Culver and his dad left to drive back home. Come on now. Come on now. You don't have to tell me that lots of people take plea deals that are innocent. You do not have to tell me that. I think I'm one of the number one people out here that will tell you guys that. Okay. But this is after 2.5 years of battling and actually winning a lot of battles that maybe mainstream media is not going to tell you that they're wins, but um, their case was weak. Bill Thompson lied for 2.5 years to parents of murdered kids. I don't think there's anything more fucking disgusting, and that's disgusting. That's right underneath giving a plea deal to somebody that you have the death penalty for. Like, this is the heinous of the heinous crimes. So how are you lying to murdered kids' parents for 2.5 years straight and then offering a plea deal at this point? Because shit the state couldn't have come out. And think about what that would mean if right after Ann fucking Taylor reveals that Branka Paca's one of the alternate perpetrators, that we're going to be, she waited all that time to then finally announce that. So you have Molly shit comes out, okay, meth Molly, and now you have Brent. And now think about how wild this case is about to be on a national stage. That's going to blow up Cast, going to blow up Nick Balance. But guess what? That doesn't mean that Brian Kober's innocent by any stretch. It just means that they have a weak case. And if that jury sees all of this fucking bullshit and they're like, well, God, we can't convict this kid. All this crap's going on and rights are being violated and right. And then so here, a killer walks free. And so Bill Thompson and the gang are like, fuck, we have no choice now. Now all this shit's going to come out about Branka Paca. You know? It's woo. Wild. But you guys keep on rocking in the free world. Happy 4th of July. And we will talk to you on the flip side. Peace out.